Welcome, individual artists and arts organization leaders. We appreciate your time and we're eager to share information with you about the funding opportunities that recent legislation has available for relief for you. Also joining me today, we are partnering with AltCap and the Small Business Administration in this conversation. They are the experts, so I'll do an overview and then hand it off to them. Joining us today is Megan Crook from AltCap, Justin E. Kirian-Wu from AltCap, and then Don Taylor from the SBA. So welcome to all of you. We're really pleased you're here. And look forward to the conversation. I just want to state to the arts org leaders and individual artists in this immediate recent legislation, there are a number of funding opportunities available to you. They are more complex and are mutually exclusive compared to those that were offered earlier in this past year. You'll hear about the PPP2 in detail today. Also available to some organizations is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. And that is another opportunity, more complex. And they have not released to anyone the opportunity to apply. They are working out the guidelines and the details. And then another option is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. And that is, again, a little more complicated, and the rules have changed compared to last year. And it too is mutually exclusive. It can be applied to, with the PPP, but not the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. So all of these guidelines we're going to post on the chat that leads to links of details about these programs. And this is just three of the most important programs available to you. I encourage you to educate yourself and to reach out for help as you begin identifying what's best for your organization. Today, again, we have experts on board and we're going to focus on PPP2. We encourage those that are listening either on Facebook or Zoom or hear this later. We encourage you to reach out and consider this funding for your organization. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Megan Crook from AltCap, and she will kick us off. I do want to say that this is not the end of the conversation. Again, we'll focus on PPP2 today with resources for you to follow up and dig a little deeper. We will have another webinar that focuses on Shuttered Venue Operator Grant and also have an expert on board that can talk about the Employee Retention Tax Credit. So I guess I'll hand it over at this point in time to Megan. Thank you. We're glad you're here.
Thanks, Dana. We are just so pleased to be partnering with AltCap to make sure that artists and arts organizations have access to federal relief funds, to relief and recovery local funds. We know that in the last year, a lot of our arts community has really been hurt. And our organization, AltCap, exists to help fill gaps with funding in our community, gaps that are left by more traditional banking institutions. As you guys are probably well familiar, banks have a hard time serving everyone, and oftentimes artists and arts organizations are left out. And so community development financial institutions like AltCap exist to help fill that gap in our communities. So we are, like I said, a certified CDFI. We're part of a national network of organizations like AltCap who serve and fill these gaps in other communities. And we're also a certified PPP lender, and we're here to share some high-level information about this federal relief program, how you as an artist or your organization can take advantage of this. It's a pretty great opportunity, and our organization is here to help you navigate the process to get access to these funds. And my teammates are going to share some more of that detail, and then we'll open it up for questions. We know this is a pretty kind of customized effort for a lot of folks, and you may have very specific questions or more general questions that we're happy to answer at any time. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Justin Carrion-Wu, who is one of AltCap's business development officers.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate everybody from the ArtsKC team having us here today. We're really looking forward to kind of diving more into PPP, and also TJ Berry with SBA. We appreciate you joining. AltCap, like Megan said, we're a community development financial institution. We provide business owners and as well as creative entrepreneurs in our community with access to capital through different microloan products. One of those products that we work really closely with ArtsKC on is ArtCap. That product is in place to provide up to $50,000 in microloan capital to creative entrepreneurs that are in need of money to be able to take their endeavors one step further. That could be used for working capital. It could be used for equipment, inventory, really a large list of things that will help boost revenue and sustainability for your business. Outside of our microloan efforts, AltCap, we've gotten involved with PPP, as we're all here to talk about today. As the pandemic hit, we noticed that there was a need for us to shift our focus from our microloan efforts to providing relief to businesses. That took us to our COVID-19 Small Business Relief Fund. As that time period was going on, I think through March and through April, once conversations really started getting picked up on Paycheck Protection Program, we noticed that there were a lot of conversations on some of those smaller businesses that were being left out of funding for whatever reason. A lot of those reasons being because of maybe they don't have that relationship with more traditional financial institutions that you might need to act really quickly, or you didn't have some of the documentation prepared. Understanding that for small businesses, especially in a pandemic, a lot of your time and focus is on the business and keeping things pushed forward, especially for a creative entrepreneur where the money that you're making maybe is based on different opportunities that were given to you and those physical engagements that are there in the community for you to take advantage of, or different projects that you have. A lot of those things were stalled. So I think it added to the issue and the problem of trying to access the Paycheck Protection Program funds. So AltCap, with our unique positioning as a CDFI, we wanted to make sure that we were going to get involved in this program to be able to provide, again, access to those businesses that were overlooked in those first rounds. One thing that we've done to get involved with PPP is really noticing that there's a need for technical assistance and understanding that a lot of times when it comes to the financial documents that you have, you might not understand how to put those together. We've worked with a group of CPAs to provide conversation, to provide consultation, and really take maybe an hour of time to work towards putting those financial documents together. Our CPA technical assistance team is there. We have different CPAs, and we've worked with CBiz as well to provide some extra assistance and consultation. We're actually paying for the first hour of time that any business owner or entrepreneur needs to work with those CPAs to get your calculations put together. When it comes to PPP, and TJ Berry here with the SBA will be able to go a little bit more into exactly what PPP is from the basics and understanding, and also touch on some of the major and important pieces and putting your calculation together as you reach out to that funding. So with that being said, I'd love to pass it over to TJ before we go more into how you can apply and some of the changes in intentionality that the SBA has done to work with businesses.
Good morning. Well, afternoon, I guess. Thank you very much, Justin, for inviting me to be part of this presentation and to help small businesses, specifically arts businesses, access PPP. With the Paycheck Protection Program, the calculations are pretty much the same, except for those that are in a specific NAICS codes. And the NAICS codes, you can look up online to see where you qualify in the multiplier. Okay, so part of all the things that we're doing is looking at the payroll that you have paid your employees or yourself, okay? And everything is driven off of that. Whether you, everything's driven off that, and it's a multiplier over a covered week period. So, and it's multiplied by 2.5 is what it is done, and it will get you to the figure that you use. I would assume, Justin, that you have the application online for all of these people?
Yes, so the application process, we've actually put forth a product. It's called LenderFit. It's a project management tool that we're using to really streamline the application process. On LenderFit, you can upload all of the documentation that is required. It actually has breakdowns of what it is exactly that you'll need to input into the program so that you can apply for PPP. It'll allow you not only to upload your documents, but you'll be able to speak back and forth with myself, some of my colleagues in business development. And once you get past that first half, also speaking back and forth with Dawn Kennedy, who's here with us today. She's working to help upload those documents into the SBA. So it's been a great tool to really make the process a lot easier. It's very straightforward. We're, like TJ was mentioning, taking the calculation based on your tax returns, putting that into the SBA's calculator, getting your loan total, and then working through the application.
Perfect. So to reduce a little bit of confusion, last year there was the first PPP draw, and many companies were able to access that and get a draw for the PPP program. And then when the money ran out, the program was shut down. Early January this year, it was reopened with new authorization and new money. And individuals that applied last year could come in, and if they met certain qualifications, if they had one of those qualifications being that they had a revenue drop of at least 25% for one quarter in 2020 versus their 2019 numbers, that you could apply for a second draw. But there's a list of requirements that are part of that. But what also happened is those individuals that were unable to take part in PPP last year are now being able to do their first draw. So you have a first draw rules and program, you have a second draw if you got one previously, and then the president's office authorized a little bit different calculation as of this weekend for companies that are less than 20 employees, so 19 employees or less, and there is going to be a different calculation and a little bit of different rules. Those rules are supposed to be rolled out today with the application, and that's probably going to apply to many of the people on this call today. But those are the three programs we have, and it sounds like Justin and AltCap, well, I know they've been doing a fantastic job of connecting businesses to the SBA so that you can get that funding that you need. I'm happy to answer any questions throughout.
Justin and Megan, could you elaborate on the assistance and the resources available to organizations and individuals who may not have either the staff or the resources to really dive in and start to access the website that you mentioned? Can they contact you directly? How do they connect with CBiz? Other access like that?
Sure. And just kind of looking at what the Paycheck Protection Program is, with it being a loan that's really designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers and on payroll, or to keep them being paid in this time. A lot of what's required is based in the financial documents. So what we did with the CPAs and with CBiz, we just carved out time, open office hours, that they'll be able to connect with anybody who has certain questions. CBiz will be able to work through 15 to 20-minute conversations. A lot of the questions that people have are easily answered in those times. If they need a longer period of time, we can get them connected to some of the CPAs that we're working with. But the best first step is to definitely contact me directly, contact any of my colleagues. Putting in an intake form on our website will allow us to get all of your information, so that we can then schedule a time to meet with you and talk through your direct eligibility or any of the needs that you have, so that we can get you in the hands of someone who could help. Sean Haggerty with CBiz has been an amazing partner to this point. He's been able to help and answer a lot of different questions. The CPAs, they've taken a lot of time. They've worked with us on both rounds in PPP that we've been involved in to this point. So we would be able to get them going.
You know, Justin, we have a couple questions here in the chat box about independent contractors. And so I'm wondering if this is a good time for also our colleague Don Kennedy to jump in the conversation here. And maybe we talk about some of these more recent changes to PPP and how they may benefit artists. Because I know, like a lot of folks here, we're kind of starting at square one here. So we want to kind of meet everyone where we're at, answer any super basic questions or more advanced questions, more specific questions about your business. So Don, do you want to share a little bit about some of those recent changes and how to calculate some of the loan amounts?
Sure, I'll kind of go on what Mr. Berry said about the differences in the sole props and the single member LLCs and the independent contractors. In the chat, it says, when you refer employees, does that include independent contractors? And independent contractors apply separately using their 2019 or 2020 tax return. And what you would do then is calculate, and I believe that the new changes is going to be based on gross income, not net, which is going to help you out a lot instead of net income, obviously. So that would be line 7 on your tax return, is how you would calculate what your loan payment would be, or your loan amount would be. Independent contractors file separately from the business that they contract with. So your business owner would apply for one PPP loan. Independent contractors apply for their own PPP loan, separate and apart from that business entity. Does that make sense? Okay.
Talk a little bit about the nature of the loan forgiveness, because I know a lot of the individual organizations that were afforded the first round have now recently been traversing the process of forgiveness. And we are finding that the lion's share of those are forgiven. So can someone from maybe SBA talk a little bit about the risk and liability of applying for PPP?
I'm not from the SBA, but I can attest to that. As long as the forgiveness part, I'm going to basically say that it falls on the applicant. The lender is not, you have to certify that what you provided to that lender, to the SBA, is accurate and true to the best of your knowledge. We are there just basically to verify that I requested a payroll protection loan of $10,000. I have provided that I have used that money for payroll during that specific covered period of either 8 or 24 weeks. And here's my proof of my documentation, either bank statements, showing payroll analysis reports, W-2s, W-3s, whatever you have that provides that. I believe that loans under $150,000 are generally going to be accepted as for forgiveness, as long as you have the substantiated payroll documentation to back up the loan amount that you requested. They're slow in getting forgiveness processed right now. And I'm sure that's because everybody wants a loan and, not worried about the forgiveness part. But it's as long as you have the supporting documentation and it's, I don't think forgiveness is going to be a risk.
And I'm going to throw some links to some resources on in the chat box for everyone. We can post these on Facebook as well. We do have a help page up that includes some information about the forgiveness process and how to start. Your forgiveness application, of course, only goes through your lender, right? So if you have an AltCap PPP loan, we'll be able to help, like Dawn was describing, process those forgiveness applications. But we're happy to answer any of those questions kind of in the meantime here, but I'll go ahead and add those below.
And they've really simplified the forgiveness process. There's a really simplified form and is not complicated. It's fairly easy to fill out. You just need to know your first loan or your loan number, your SBA loan number, and have your supporting documentation.
And thank you, Megan, for posting resources. We will also compile all of these links and resources and send those out both via email and social posts, so people will have those. AltCap and ArtsKC both have resource pages, so don't be shy. There are links in both places. I also want to encourage everyone to reach out to Justin and others to connect with an expert, a CPA or an accountant, if you have any questions about whether your eligibility and relief might vary between applying for a PPP versus the shuttered venue operators grant. Because the two are mutually exclusive. If you apply to a PPP, you will likely not be able to apply to what we're calling the SVOG. So I encourage you, if there is a question and you are a shuttered venue, to seek help in understanding which would be most financially beneficial for you.
And it looks like we have a question from one of our favorite people, Chris Dahlquist, who is one of the minds behind, is the mind behind AltCap's ArtCap microloan program. So Chris asked if someone can speak to the new loan amount calculations and if they might be applied retroactively for those that have already taken a second draw.
TJ, you might be able to speak better on that than I am. I have not heard that that's the case, that they're going to retroactive that or not.
Oh no, TJ might be frozen. Looks like we might have to maybe come back to that question.
Chris,
Yeah,
we'll come back to that.
I just want to recent changes that have been announced. I'm going to put another link down here in the chat box that kind of gives an overview of those changes. And so, Chris, that is an excellent question that we're kind of waiting for, I think, some more guidance on. Is that right, Justin?
Right. They're coming out with new IFRs all the time. And if that's the case, then Megan, I'll let you know.
We can get a follow-up to this question and see if we can get an answer by the end of the week. I think we're all anticipating that more information will come out here in the next couple of days.
Justin, do you want to speak a little bit about this 2-week period that is prioritizing businesses with 20 or fewer employees?
Sure. So one thing that's been different in this round of PPP is that the SBA's tried to be a little bit more intentional on making sure that those who were left out in the last round, will be able to get the funding. Coming into this round, some of the changes that they made to prioritize folks was those who hadn't gotten a PPP loan before, they've made them a priority in this round. Having those who had fewer than 10 employees, those who had an amount of revenue under 250,000, and those who had made a business in low to moderate income areas. They've made a change in this over the course of the next 2 weeks to say that those who have under 20 employees will be heavily prioritized, and they will have the opportunity to get their loans processed through the SBA. That I think really ties in well with the group that we have here. Any independent artists, I saw the question earlier of how are they affected. I think it ties back in with the question on independent contractors. Definitely reach out and let's see, and especially over the course of these next 2 weeks, if PPP would be a good fit for you as you're kind of making that decision, like Dana said, between PPP and SVOG, just to see which one you would like to go and move forward with. The least that we could do is get you connected to a CPA that can at least help walk you through eligibility, or we can answer those questions up front just to show you and give you an idea of what your full options are and what's available to you.
The SBA set aside $1 billion for businesses that are in LMI census tracts and businesses without employees. So that would be all independent contractors and sole props.
We've got another question. Is there geographic boundary that AltCap will currently work with as a lender for PPP? Yeah, we've in the last few years greatly expanded our geographic reach. Right now, AltCap is primarily operating in the 7-county Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas region. We'll be looking to expand from there in the coming years. So yes, we're with PPP, we don't have a particular geographic focus within that, as long as businesses are headquartered operating in the Kansas City regional area. Is there anyone else on the call or on Facebook Live who has any more specific questions about PPP or the application process?
This will not be the last time that we come together to provide support for everyone. What I would do is, again, encourage those of you that are listening and watching this to reach out to AltCap. Again, the result of the first round of PPP really did unintentionally omit very important recipients, and many of those were and are individual artists and small arts organizations. So we have a service agency that is standing by to help you, so I encourage you to reach out. We have a couple questions, Megan.
Yeah, Justin, do you want to share a little bit about the business advisory services and technical assistance from AltCap?
Sure. So again, we have a team of CPAs that CBiz has joined on to, just our technical assistance team for PPP. The process, if you'd like to work with that team, just put in an intake form. We will reach back out to you just to kind of have a conversation about your situation and see if we can, from there, if you have any questions, if you'd like to work through your application with one of the CPAs, we'll be able to get you introduced and in contact with one of them, or we'll share the open office hours that CBiz has made available to us every week. And you'll be able to either reach out to Sean Haggerty and one of his colleagues at CBiz, or set up a more targeted appointment with one of the CPAs to work through your situation. And again, AltCap will pay for the first hour of technical assistance with any of the CPAs. The 15 to 20 minute consultations with CBiz they're doing that work pro bono, just wanting to make sure that they're working with the business owners and the artists that we're connected to get them the help they need. So.
Yeah, and like Justin said before, the first step is filling out our intake form, the website, which is www.alt-cap.org. It's just a short form, so we know who you are and how you like to be contacted. And then Justin and our team will follow up with you directly to help connect you to those resources.
Megan?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dawn. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to see if you wanted me, there's a few other changes that might affect some of the applicants that that they went over that President Biden put into action yesterday. In addition to the 2-week processing period and how the income is calculated for sole proprietors and independent contractors, there's also some restrictions that have been eased for non-fraud convictions and also some delinquent federal student loan debt. They were basically not approving anybody with delinquent federal student loan debt, and they are now. So that is no longer a disqualifier. And I-10 holders, some of you may know people who have I-10, Social Security, not Social Security numbers, but I-10 numbers. And then they have to have a green card, but they're now eligible as well.
Dawn, are there any and Justin, any frequently asked questions about the application process that you guys are hearing from folks that would be helpful to share kind of as some arts are starting in on this process?
I know there's frequently asked questions from the last round. I haven't seen too many from this round. Have you, Justin?
I know. Well, I was going to say that there's actually a task force of different organizations that have came together through Kansas City to get information to and in front of businesses and kind of build on that connectedness of information. And there's some FAQs that have been put together there from this round sporadically. Maybe that's something that could be really helpful. We could follow up with Dana and with Anna Joy and see if we can get that information shared to the group as well.
Also, and I don't know if we mentioned this yet or not, but the deadline to apply for PPP is coming up very quickly. It's technically March 31st, but because some of these applications take a minute to process, AltCap will be cutting off new applications on March 23rd. If we're thinking you need to get some of your documentation in order, it's best to reach out now. We're trying to manage any kind of, all the demands and interest and questions that are coming in about this program. So we want to get you guys in line and make sure that the arts community has access to this federal relief funding program. This is, well, we think anyway, a really great opportunity to get funding in the arts community that is so desperately needed.
I would just also add and encourage, and I stated this in the chat, to meet with your accountant or someone from AltCap to determine the benefit or the comparison between PPP and SVOG. What we are hearing is that a SVOG may not be open for applications until much more closely to the deadline of PPP, or in fact on the other side of it. There may, TJ, you may have more information, but what that does, it may really force your hand as an applicant to really determine that sooner rather than later as to meet the PPP deadline.
Yes, and I think that that's something that we definitely will keep the information flowing on with SVOG, and as some of that information is more readily available, we can definitely follow up with the group on that.
While I'm not an accountant or a CPA, I do know that the employee retention tax credit, the rules around that have changed too. So if you're sitting down with your accountant, CPA, or AltCap, you might also bring that up and see if you might qualify or if that might be financially beneficial to you. I believe now you can apply to that alongside a PPP loan. So it's just add that to your list of questions that you bring with you when you meet with your accountant and or CPA. Is TJ back online with us? Could we double back and maybe answer that question or two? Is he back with us?
I think TJ might have gotten disconnected.
Okay. Well, Chris, we will not ignore your question. What we'll do is try to find an answer to that and send it out to you directly. Any other questions at the moment from anyone on Zoom or Facebook? Please forward those to us. Again, this will not be the last time we convene. We were even talking earlier today about maybe having a few work sessions on Zoom to maybe be a little more efficient and in a group setting, answer some questions so that we can benefit from one another's learning. So stay tuned. We'll consider putting that together in the weeks to come.
That's great. I also put in a couple webinars into the chat box. There's one that's a little bit more focused on kind of the technical assistance side of things that AltCap did with our partner CBiz. And then there is another a video on the forgiveness process that we did the first round. And Justin might have to advise on if we've seen any changes since then. I think the only changes we've seen has been to make that process easier. So yeah, again, guys, this could be a large grant for a lot of your organizations. So yeah, we want to make sure that, you know, as your local CDFI, that we're helping make sure that everyone has access to this program. And if there are questions, feel free always to reach out to us directly. All of our information is in the chat and on our website.
TJ, I know you just rejoined. Are you there?
I am.
So we had
I'm here.
Great. We had a specific question for you. Let's see, from Chris Dahlquist. I'm dialing back up. So bear with me here.
And I apologize for the disconnect. It happens to all of us, but it's horrible when it does.
Can someone, TJ, can you speak to the new loan amount calculations and if they might be applied retroactively for those that have already taken a second draw?
No. That is still permanent because if you already took a loan, it's already been approved by the SBA, and we don't know how the interaction is going to take place with the banks, with the new directions from the president's office. It's a little bit too new. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Any other questions, comments? Megan, Justin, Dawn, TJ? TJ, have you heard anything as to the potential release date for the guidelines for the shuttered venue operators grant?
We have not. That continues to be in development. We've gotten a little bit more information on how they're going to look at it. And one of the things that is sort of a bone in the discussion is it looks like for those venues, you're going to have fixed seating. So that's one of the things that is really being discussed on who's going to be able to apply and who's not.
Okay. One last question related to that, and then Chris Dahlquist wanted you to clarify. You said no, you can't speak to it, or no, you can't apply retroactively.
We don't have directions, so
Okay.
I can't. I don't know how the rules are going to be applied.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So, Chris, I hope that helped.
It didn't, but I'm sorry. That's sort of where we're at right now. The president announced that over the weekend, and the rules, the calculations, everything has to be developed. And it was supposed to be out by Wednesday today.
So one other detail at this early stage that I'd like, TJ, if you'd be willing to clarify, with the shuttered venue operators grant, those that almost normally do not necessarily apply for government grants, they do need to access that funding through the grants.gov portal, as I understand it. So could you talk a little bit about that? And is that still true? And how do people who don't normally access charitable and federal funding log on to that?
We don't have guidance. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it may end up going through the banks, just like the PPP does. It will not be going through the EIDL portal with the SBA. They're still discussing it. We were supposed to have directions really a month ago, and they're trying to nail down all of the possible issues before they open this up, because there are a lot of big venues that would possibly will qualify, and the dollars for the shuttered venue are fairly, relatively compared to the PPP program, they're fairly limited. So how does everybody get a bite at the apple is part of the discussion that is going on.
Very good. Thank you, TJ. I think I'll just say up to this point from the nonprofit arts organization perspective, they are encouraging organizations, either nonprofit and or for-profit, to really ready to sign up through grants.gov. If you do not already have a DUNS number and you're not already registered in that system, they are encouraging people to do so, because it does take time, and that application process might be a bit hastened. So it sounds like that's still up in the air, along with the release date and the open date for that SVOG grant application process. I'm speaking to your question, Evie. It really is still up in the air. Please, TJ.
So one of the things that in our discussion group is you have to have your T's crossed and your I's dotted for the venue, because we're very afraid that the money is it will go very quickly. So have all of the documentation, like you're saying, already done as much as you can, so that when the rules are published and it does open, you're ready.
Dana, can I ask a follow-up question to that for TJ? TJ, we actually have several smaller venues that are part of our arts organization constituency that have flexible seating situations. And you did mention earlier that they must be fixed seating. So I'm kind of wondering if you could speak to that a little bit more, because that's a huge delineation. I'm thinking of at least 3 or 4 venues that I know that they're not bolted to the floor, but it's based on the needs of whichever show they're putting on, the social distancing needs, things like that, that they've had to make some significant changes in the way that the setup is. So does that automatically remove them from eligibility for that?
Anna, we don't know. That was internal discussions that have been taking place. I think that that may be part of the reason that the rollout for the venues product is slower, because they're trying to iron out who really does qualify and what are those parameters. Is a wedding venue, is that an arts? Is it an entertainment? How does it apply? We're wanting to make sure that when the rules are published, that people can clearly say, yes, I do qualify, or no, I don't qualify.
We know this delay is frustrating, and I will say from ArtsKC's point of view, we are talking both with elected officials and then also lobbyists that are in DC and influencing this process, and they are struggling because it's a limited amount of money that is intended to serve as many people as possible. So TJ is right that they are really trying to tighten the guidelines so that it can have some substantive impact. It's tough. And I will say that we do hear that there is some interest and there's quite a bit of push to have a second round and or increase the funding within that relief option. But we don't know what the outcome would be.
Did have another thing that I wanted to mention back on PPP for a minute. One of the things that we've heard from some small businesses is that they had made an attempt to apply for previous rounds of PPP with either their bank or maybe a bank that they didn't have a relationship with that Justin talked about earlier, and were denied. That doesn't always mean that you don't qualify. So I'd encourage folks, if you have applied for previous rounds and were denied for whatever reason, given that a lot of the rules have changed, given that we know a little bit more how some banks were prioritizing applicants, we're encouraging folks to continue trying with either the bank, with a new bank, with a CDFI like AltCap. It doesn't always mean it was you, I guess. It's me, it's not you kind of situation there. So this is kind of a very unique offering right now for relief and recovery funds, and it's worth making another effort if you were turned down the first time.
Okay, we'll begin wrapping up. Any last questions? I think we've gone through everything that was on the chat. So if you have any last questions, please type those in. I want to encourage everyone to reach out to your local SBA. We have lots of links here. AltCap, ArtsKC, I think it is safe to say that we all stand ready to help you in any way we can. We closely and intimately understand the challenges that you're facing, and this relief funding is here for you. So I want to thank Megan, TJ, Justin, and Dawn for taking the time out of their busy day to be here in support of arts organization leaders and individual artists. And those of you on the Zoom and on Facebook Live, we appreciate you tuning in. And again, do not hesitate to reach out if you need any kind of support or help.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. We will be sending out a follow-up email with all the links that were mentioned in this chat, and with anything else I can squeeze out of Megan and Justin, TJ and Dawn. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.